Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania.
Where we discuss history and haunts.
Today's story takes us up north in the state to a huge plot of land. I'm
Huge.
Sarah.
And I'm David.
Let's get into it. So today's is not about one location per se in how we've thought of the other locations that have been very specific. Today we're talking about the Pennsylvania Wilds, which is a block of 2 million acres of land.
Yes. Well, you're essentially just going from like a prison to a national park.
Right, exactly. Because we've had ghosts, we've had vampires, we've had witches, and now I bring you on this episode aliens.
Dun, dun, dun.
This place is touted as Pennsylvania's own Area 51. And it turns out PA is in the top 10 states of the best states to visit for UFO sightings.
Don't know if I am happy or sad about that.
I know, it's kind of strange. Who would have thought?
Yeah, or actually happy or scared. I mean, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah.
Who's number one, do you know?
I don't remember.
Alaska, I bet.
So this block of land is actually comparable to Yellowstone in size because it's so big. And the counties included are Warren, McKean, Potter, Tioga, Lycoming, Clinton, Elk, Cameron, Forest, Clearfield, Clarion, Jefferson, and Center. That's just a shout out for the people that live there.
Is the center in the center?
I'm sure it is. And this is along the northern border of the state and then goes a little bit down towards the center of the state. It covers roughly 25% of the state, but only has 4% of the state's population.
Wow.
Very uninhabited.
I mean, makes sense.
Or everyone that used to live there has been abducted by aliens.
Definitely that.
And the goal of this grouping of the Pennsylvania Wilds is to revitalize these rural communities and increase tourism in the area. And this place is really well known for stargazing because there's so little people there that there's very minimal light pollution and the skies are incredibly clear.
Incredibly clear. So they're known for that?
Yeah, they're known for stargazing.
That's very interesting.
People travel from across the state to go to the Pennsylvania Wilds to stargaze. It's like a thing that people do.
Oh, I mean, I'll believe you.
Yeah. We do a lot of hiking, and we visited some of these counties to hike and see smaller towns, but we've never had a paranormal experience, but we weren't really on the lookout for one.
No, when we're hiking, usually we're moving pretty fast and eyes dead ahead, never up.
Well, we even stayed overnight in Clarion.
Yeah, but I don't think I looked up the sky once.
Yeah, that was an interesting stay.
It was fun.
Yeah. So, that's the history. It's a pretty short history because I could delve into all of these different counties and the history would take forever. But we're going to get some history as we go through the paranormal story. Because the way we're going to do this is the chronological history of UFO sightings. So, as I said, this is Pennsylvania's Area 51. And some of the recountings of UFOs actually date back a century or more.
Okay.
Pretty significant. People so strongly believe that they have seen UFOs that there have been hundreds of reports to the National UFO Reporting Center.
Interesting.
So we're going to take it all the way back to the early 1800s. And this is back when there was a bit of a witch scare. And back then, seeing lights or figures in the sky was attributed to the local witches. There was a famous witch hunter named John Myers who was there to hunt the witches and cure these afflicted people. So to cure people of seeing the lights or being tormented by witches, he would trace the outline of the afflicted person, take the paper and pin it to a piece of pine, and then shoot the outline with a silver bullet, thereby releasing the afflicted from the witch's grasp and therefore freeing them from seeing any lights in the sky.
Did that work?
Apparently. He did it, like, for years.
Interesting. I've never heard of any technique like that.
Neither have I.
You know.
He is said to have died in 1821, but there's no actual record of his death other than word of mouth or any grave bearing his name anywhere. So people think he's an immortal witch hunter.
Interesting.
So is it witches or is it UFOs? Who knows?
Would that also make him paranormal?
That would make him paranormal.
Wonder how he achieved his immortality. Is he a vampire that hunts vampires?
A vampire that hunts witches.
Who says he can't do both?
He could do both. So, getting into that's the furthest back that I could find of flying things in the sky. But the actual first written account calling them UFOs as we know them today was from 1897. So, allegedly, 76 years after this guy perished. There was a Potter County newspaper that said, and I quote, "The flying machine was seen by reputable persons whose veracity could not be questioned, and they alleged that 3 men were visible on the machine, which was in the shape of a huge cigar." End quote. So this was published in the paper and allegedly has reputable sources. However, there's other not official, like not journal or newspaper printed rather, accounts of this object at the same time that call it cylindrical yet egg-like.
I mean, so the shapes are roughly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Cigar versus more egg shape, but still like rounded tube almost.
Yeah. And the unofficial accounts also say that there were 3 humanoid figures on the structure.
Did they actually call them humanoids?
No, that's what I called them.
Okay. Oh, I'm surprised that word was around back then. That is interesting, though. I can't imagine what it was at the time, right?
And so that's what I try to think. Like, because each of these is separated into a distinct time period, I try to think of what in history it could have been. But unless someone created this random flying machine that was oddly shaped and held 3 men, it seems kind of weird.
Right, because it feels more like, or sounds more like a rocket, like a
Right.
rocketry thing, but...
So, very strange. The next significant reports come from between 1950 and 1962. And Hiram Cranmer was a local paranormal specialist in the Pennsylvania wilds. He cataloged many UFO sightings specifically near his home. He described the majority of them as saucer-shaped, like the stereotypical UFO that we see, and he described them as shining like silver and then suddenly vanishing.
So when did the UFO craze start in the United States?
Apparently, it really took off in the 50s.
Okay, so I'm not trying to discredit this individual, but it was just interested in the history aspect of that, if whether or not this person could be going for clout. Probably not, though.
I mean, we're here to be skeptics as well.
Right.
And I think what I don't like about his accounting of it is all of them looked like saucers and all of them were silver. All of them just happened to be like the stereotypical Jetson UFOs.
Right.
That seems unrealistic to me.
But still very interesting that, we're, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that math, but a couple decades later and we're hearing even more reports.
More and more, yeah. So then we'll jump 4 years forward to 1966. In the summer of 1966, in the town of Cottersport, there was a huge jump in seeing flying objects in the sky across the whole summer. There were many reports from locals and visitors alike saying that they saw UFOs. There was even a minister who previously did not believe in aliens and UFOs, but he said that he saw so many that summer that he became a believer in aliens.
That's kind of cool.
I know,
right?
It feels significant that a minister gave their belief.
Right. Like a very religious person may not have like a thought to believe in aliens, but then after seeing is believing, I guess.
Right, which means it must have been significant. With this 1966 summer, the accounts of people say that they would see an oval-shaped object in the sky, and then their car engine would go dead.
Oh, this is a very common thing you'll hear with like...
Is it?
Alien sightings and such. Yeah, UFOs that will fly over and your car will die.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is there like a suspected reason?
I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I shouldn't say very common. I don't know factually it's very common.
But you've heard of it.
I've heard it quite often.
Interesting. Additionally, there have been multiple sightings of green glowing spheres over Allegheny National Forest over the years. Some reports of these say that there's a triangle-shaped green object, and it's been in the same area. Reports say that the triangle/sphere will hover around the interstate and then completely disappear. So it doesn't fly away, it doesn't move away. It's there and then it's not. And some people say that there's puffs of smoke left once this object disappears.
Smoke, steam, or...
The accounts that I read said smoke, but I mean, no one's touching it. It's above the interstate.
Right. Makes me think of like combustion. Like if that was some sort of R&D project, but still, like, hovering wasn't around, I don't think, technologically for aerial for a while. I don't think it would have been a helicopter either, because that would have been making a lot of noise.
And specifically green lights. I feel like that's uncommon.
I'm not sure for that time period.
That's true. We're going to jump up to 2006. So we're going to talk specifically about Jefferson County, which is one of the counties that has the most sightings in the Pennsylvania wilds. And a first-person account of this from May 2006 says, quote, "I thought there were 3 military aircraft flying in formation at a very high altitude because I heard no noise. However, what I did notice was that the background stars between the lights were not present. That should only mean that the 3 points of the light must be one big object." End quote.
I believe that if it's obscuring light from other stars, then yeah, that would lead you to say that there is indeed a large craft flying.
But how big it must have been if he thought that it was 3 military jets, 3 separate military jets, but it's all one big thing.
Well, he did say flying in close formation, right?
Yeah.
So,
3 military flying, no, just flying in formation at a very high altitude.
At a very high altitude. Okay.
So they smaller, but nonetheless, it must have been taking up significant space.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? We do have some very big planes at this point.
In 2006.
In 2006.
Yeah. So the man continued to say that the object continued to move silently through the sky.
But the moving silently and the not hearing anything is what's
sketchy.
Somewhat. I mean, yeah.
So jumping up in years, the next story comes 7 years later from 2013. 2 young men saw orange bright lights flying through the daytime sky. They reported that the lights were moving incredibly fast and that they initially appeared to be approaching the house. Instead, they rapidly changed course and flew over the house, only to disappear moments later. They said that they moved so fast that the entire sighting took less than a minute.
Oh man, it makes me think of the so there have been, like, whether these are real or not, seen UFO videos where there are indeed orange lights that are flying around. And, you know, there was even an account, granted it wasn't orange, there was a light that was like over some city in Israel that was just hovering there and then shot up into the sky.
It sounds similar.
Yeah, at speeds that were just like not, I don't think, capable for normal aircraft to perform.
That's crazy. So, more recently, in 2020, a witness saw, again orange, but also accompanied by white lights, again in a triangle formation. He described it almost as shooting stars, but said that the lights were moving faster than shooting stars could have and were too distinctive a color. Which I don't really get that, because stars look white pretty much, you know. How are you going to say a white light moving is not a shooting star?
I don't know.
I guess if they're moving rapidly. Anyways, he said that he watched them for 15 minutes, but they were moving too fast to be captured by a photo, so he couldn't capture proof of them. And then after a while of him trying to take photos, the lights disappeared.
Interesting. Though I will say that I've also seen a lot of, whether real or not, like UFO videos or compilation videos, where a lot of the videos have 3 points of light flying as in a triangle-like formation and not ever really deviating whatsoever from that.
That's crazy. Because that's like the glowing green was either a sphere or a triangle. And even, I feel like a triangle could be mistaken for a sphere if it's blurred.
Sure. Maybe.
I don't know. If it's far enough away, I guess. So specifically talking about this county, there are significant skeptics there. So I-80 is right through this county, which everybody says accounts for some of the lights, that it's the reflection off a rainy turnpike or highway. There's also an airport nearby, which has made some people say the sightings are just of lights that are distorted or lights that are just unfamiliar to some, especially visitors.
Sure. I'm sure that some of that is indeed what accounting for it, some of the sightings, but the the long history of sightings, and also when was that airport built?
That's a great question. Let me Google that.
Just because there is an airport does not mean there always was one. So if it was built, who knows when.
Let's see. Okay, here we go. It doesn't say.
Oh, man. You hate to hear that.
I mean, I'm sure if I looked long enough, I could find it, but for the sake of the podcast.
Sure.
So I wanted to find something about alien abductions or actual interactions, because I thought that would make this even cooler. I mean, the stories are already interesting to think about, and I'd love to know listeners' perspectives on if they think that it's actually aliens or distorted light somehow. But I found no abductions or interactions, and it seems like it's limited just to UFOs, or if we believe the people of the 1800s, witches afflicting people to see lights in the sky.
Or it's the vampire witch hunter flying through the sky because he actually has superpowers
on his broom.
On his broomstick that he liberated from a witch.
Exactly. So, as always, we want to answer the question, would you visit this place of paranormal phenomena? And I say I would absolutely go back. We've only really been to the fringe of it, and we're pretty avid hikers, so it would be great to visit. I would love to go stargazing here, maybe even see a UFO or blinking lights. And there's also so many cute little towns along the area that would just be really great to see.
Yeah, I would absolutely go back. I don't know. I mean, seeing a UAP would be really interesting.
Can you explain for the listeners what a UAP is?
An unidentified aerial phenomenon. It's what the government is now trying to call UFOs these days. Because a UFO is a very, I guess, not loaded term, but has a connotation with it that it's always aliens.
I wonder if they renamed the National UFO Reporting Center then. They must have.
Unsure. I don't know.
So you would go?
Oh, yeah.
And would you want to see a UAP?
Maybe. Like a once in a lifetime thing, sure.
I know. I don't want to be the first alien encounter.
No, I'd screw that up royally.
Yeah. Not the first, like, in general, but the first in this area to be reported, at least.
Oh,
or
sure.
I was like, the fact that I can't find any actual encounters or abductions could mean they're just not coming back.
Right. Just, yeah, almost like survivor bias.
Yeah, exactly. So I would visit it. I would love to hear if other people would want to visit it. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Paranormal in Pennsylvania. Let us know your thoughts on these aliens and tune in next Thursday to see what phenomena we discuss next.